Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from 1. We would like to present our material, and the material is Introduction to Children's Literature, its definition, its values, and its development. And my name is Dini Pramesti as a first speaker, and the presentation will be presented now. So, in the Introduction to Children's Literature, we have 4 table of contents. The first is history of children's literature, the second is children's literature, and the third is famous children's literary works, and the last is influential literary writers of children. And now my part is begin. The history of children's literature. Before we start the history of children's literature, first thing we have to know is what is the definition of children's literature. So, according to Carl Tomlinson and Carol Lynch Brown, children's literature is good quality trade books for children from birth to adolescence, covering topics of relevance and interest to children of those ages through prose, poetry, fiction, and non-fiction. And the first history of children's literature is begun in classical work in 850 before Common Era until 476 Common Era. And in this era, there were no books literary for children, so the prose, the poetry, the story is telling by oral. And in this era, it tells about Greek and Roman myth epics. And in the Middle Age, it starts in 476 Common Era until 1450. So in this era, children's literature it starts with religious tales or biblical stories. It set example for children for didactic purpose. And in this Middle Age, the hornbook were made. The hornbook is a small wooden pedals with one set of paper. So the paper usually consists of the alphabet or religious verse of the Lord's Prayer, and the hornbook served as a tool for children for over 200 years. And next is Renaissance. It started in 1450 until 1700s, and in this era the printing press is start. The children's literature books start to printing. So the printing press made it possible to make multiple copies of book. And the stories by John Comenius is the first children's pictures book. In this era, book children letters was promoted mass education. And the next is 18th and early 19th centuries. It starts in 100 and 700 until 1830. So in this era, the story tells about intellectual development and moral development, and the first famous publishing of children's book is by John Newbery. And in this era, it's advocated that a child mind at birth was like a blank slate. It's also influenced by Rousseau's emphasis on proper moral development. And next is the Victorian's Golden Age. It starts in 1830 until 1900. In this era is the rise of modern fantasy. There are more talented writers wrote entertaining stories for children and first children masterpiece of modern fantasy. And there are first classic US modern fantasy for children. And in the 20th centuries, the theme of the story in this era is the focus on children themselves, and the didactic tone no longer succeeds in the new child-centered environment. And the story importance works include Winnie the Pooh, Little House in the Big Woods, The Hobbit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or as we know. Also, and in this era, they promoted the writing of great works of children's literatures. They raised the status of children's literatures and promote the publishing of children's books. And that's all from me. Thank you. The next presentation will be presented by Agus Dwi Wahyudi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Agus Dwi Wahyudi from Group 1. I want to explain about my material from my group. I want to explain about children literary and adult literary. So the children literary include story, books, magazine, and poem that are made from children, modern children. Children literary is classified two different ways: genre and are then intended age of the reader. Children literary can be traced to story such as fairy tales that have been identified as children's literary in the 18th centuries, and song, part of wider oral traditional that adults share with children before publishing existing. The development of children literary before printing was invented is difficult to trace. Adult literary is like literature that contains complex human life using complex language and content. Usually, adult literature tells about romance, social inequality, or then complicated problems. From the example, Bumi Manusia by Pramudia Anantatur is not suited for children because basically children still have simple stuff. In the case, it can be seen that adult literature and children literature have different target readers. So, children literature and adult literature have four differences, such as children literature. Sentence in children literature still very simple words. In adult literature, sentence in adult literature use complex word with variant kind of more complex diction. And the second, children literature will provide a form of knowledge and recognition that exists in something. In adult literature will provide conflict experience and also the concept of life. And the third, conduct this discussion about variant kind and moral in life from the children. And the third, in adult literature, doing discuss in moral, mental, and psychology problems. And the fourth and the last, talking about from story idea that exist in children life. In adult literature, talking story about idea and come from experience of sex, violence, and also people life. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay guys, I will start to explain material to our presentation about famous children of literary works. The first, Harry Potter. Harry Potter is one of the famous children's film and previously wrote by not author Joanne Kathleen Rowling. Harry Potter books is a genre of fantasy literature written by J.K. Rowling. She designed to compose 7 books, which tells the story of a boy witch and his friend, who are at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The second, The Cat in the Hat. The Cat in the Hat is one of the most famous children's book in 1957, written by one of the famous writers from America named Theodore Seuss Geisel. But he always wrote his name pen in every his book published is Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss writes a lot in children's storybook, about 60 children's storybook, but most famous is this story. In this book, Dr. Seuss tells about a cat and a hat. Geisel made it in response to a debate in the United States about literacy in an early age and the inaccuracy of a traditional primary book such as Dick and Jane. The third is A Little House. Little House is a book by Laura Ingalls Wilder and is an American television drama series starring Michelle Landon, Melissa Gilbert, and Karen Gessel, about family living on a farm in Walnut Grove, Minnesota, in the 1870 until 1880s. This book is a very famous book in America, so that it is made into a children's drama series. Okay, the next is Stuart Little. Stuart Little was a popular children's book by E.B. White. The film was released on December 17th, 1999 by Columbia Pictures. E.B. White is an American writer. He is the author of several popular children's books, such as Stuart Little. Okay, the next is Bezus and Remuna. Bezus and Remuna is a 1955 children's novel written by Beverly Curley. This is the first Beverly Curley fiction book to focus on Remuna Quimby and her sister Beatrice, who is known as Bezus. Bezus and Remuna are related fiction written from the perspective of 9-year-old Bezus as she struggles to get along with her 4-year-old sister. And Beverly Curley is an American children and young adult fiction writer. Okay, the next, Kenny's Window. Kenny's Window is the first children's book written and illustrated by Maret Sendak. It tells the story of a boy's search for a garden he sees in his dream, which involves answering 7 questions given to him by a 4-legged rooster in the dream. Toys and stuffed animals from him along the way. This book is one of Maurice Bernard Sendak's first book in the fiction genre. He is one of the famous American writers. Okay, thank you. The next presenter is Dwi Handayani.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dwi Handayani. I'm from Group 1. In this video, let me explain about influential literary writers of children. In 1967, Carlos Perrault, Joseph Jacob, and Andrew with story Cinderella, Snow White, and the Red Hood. In 1744, John Newbery wrote the story A Little Pretty Pocket Books, the story about religion, and it was created to create a character for children to believe in the power of God at the time. And it continued in 1864 of Louisa May Alcott and Johann David created a story about a family essential, Little Woman and the Swiss Family Robinson. So the story began to be rewritten and published into a book, so many of the children in the world could enjoy reading the book. This phenomenon make the literature of children who were once told only by word of mouth. Now, story is a book that can be enjoyed well. Children's story over the years show their fertility. Children's books are booming. One of them is Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. These are the story that turn the course of the book into a children's film made with the didactic element. The writer deliberately adds to the element to enable children to receive the supplies by reading or watching a work of literature. I think enough for me. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.